Hey. It's Business Pants! Now, if you're watching the live stream, you're thinking to yourself, no, you're not Business Pants, you're a guy. You're like one guy. What is that? It's true, I'm just one guy, but I'm live from the dark end of a flashlight for an anti-woke Wednesday edition of Business Pants. Damien is out sick today with agoraphobia, and I'm a AA rated ESG entity on a scale of 3 to 6 stars. Yeah, that makes sense, right? In the ESG adjacency, that is October 19th, 2022, some ESG Kabuki Theater. Ooh, everybody likes theater. Woke washing and anti-woke washing. Let's get started. I'm going to keep this as brief as I can. There's so much news, it's hard to keep up. But let's start with ESG Kabuki Theater because this news broke this morning, which is Missouri is the latest state to divest from BlackRock over ESG initiatives for their, quote, woke political agenda. Yes! Another conservative political appointee is finally shoving the blunt end of a stick in the eye of BlackRock, the woke communist money manager. And in response, here's what BlackRock had to say. They issued this statement. Oh, that's it. That's right. They stuck it to him with deafening silence. I said nothing. But they did manage to rebrand their division to lean a little less into the sustainability sound of it. They stopped voting on climate proposals this year, and climate change can wait a year anyway. And they put up a new website in which they calmly and quietly describe that they are, in fact, capitalists and fiduciaries, and that their clients have many choices, and they can use all the information at their disposal to, oh my God, it's so fucking boring. Hey, BlackRock, I got news for you. Nothing you're doing works. Larry Fink last week was quoted as saying he's being attacked equally by the left and the right in the ESG fight. Quote, so I'm doing something right. Unfortunately, he said, quote, facts are not important with some subgroups in this country. Welcome to America, you idiot. Facts haven't been important here for 7 years. I mean, arguably longer. Are we kidding? Who are you kidding? But don't worry, Larry. I have fixed your problem. I have a 3-step solution to fix what is your constant problems with this ESG Kabuki Theater. It's not going away. It's an election issue. It's going to go right on till the presidential election in 2 years. So let's just fix it right now. Here's solution number 1. Stop doing business in these states. Sue them for slander and breach of contract. If you're like every other multinational corporation, you make like all your employees sign forced arbitration clauses. You can't be seriously telling me that you didn't put in your contract with Missouri and every other fool state a sentence that says, oh, FYI, while we're managing your money, you can't talk shit about us. Just sue them for slander. Option number 2, can't sue them? Fucking yank them. Close their accounts. Take a $100 billion hit to AUM. Most contracts allow you to kick out an investor, so give that a shot. Leave them like a shitty date you had when you were 24, when they spilled wine on your pantsuit, made you order buffalo tongue, just, quote, for fun, and then said you could talk more about tongues later at your place. Don't let yourself be politicized, even if it costs you. And if you can't yank them, then how about trying being woke? They're calling you that anyway. Stop fucking around. Try to convince your world. You don't have to convince anybody you're a capitalist. We all know you're a capitalist. Republicans don't care. Just be woke instead. Go back to talking about stakeholders and how they matter. Climate change, how it's going to fuck you up no matter what you do. Maybe even vote. Vote on these issues. And why not just say investing in fossil fuel is like a long bet on Polaroid? Be a winner. Stop hiding. What are you doing? Elsewhere in Kabuki Theater news, there was this headline. Texas school asks UBS to refund after energy boycotter label. Yes, I read that to you correctly. A Texas school district was forced to stop using UBS, who was underwriting one of their bonds, because the state comptroller put UBS on the state enemies list. That's enemies of fossil fuels. Unfortunately, the school had already paid them to do some stuff, and now they had to switch to a different investment bank. So what did the Texas school district decide to do? They sued UBS for being added to the enemy list, not the comptroller for costing them money. Just let the stupidity sink in. Is it sunk? Oh, does anybody happen to have any crib notes on how capitalism and capital markets work? Because last time I checked, when you pay somebody to do something and then decide you don't want them to do it anymore for no fault of that person, you still owe them the money. Apparently being anti-woke is getting expensive. And finally, in our coordinated ESG Kabuki Theater, I want to give you a Dilbert update. We haven't come back to Dilbert in so long. Dilbert's like our fave. First up, in our Dilbert update, how Dilbert author Scott Adams doesn't realize there's an S in ESG, and it usually means employees. Here are some of the things on Dilbert from just the past week. This is the boss saying, tell all the work from home people to come in Friday for an employee meeting. And his secretary says, how will I explain to them the sadistic absurdity of your request? And the boss says, tell them we're like a family and I miss them. And the secretary says, does this fall under the umbrella of domestic violence? That's right. The freedom to work from home. Guess who measures that? ESG. ESG does that. Or how about this one from last week? Ready? This is Dilbert. My pay is not keeping up with inflation. The boss says, perhaps you could cultivate an abundance mindset. And then the boss pauses and says, do you have any other problems I can solve for you? You know what that's about? Income inequality and living wages. My pay doesn't keep up with inflation. You know who tracks that? ESG data. That's an ESG data point. I collected it wherever I could. But next up, Dilbert author Scott Adams thinks that DEI, diversity, and climate change are not real issues. ESG bad. This from yesterday. The boss says, Tina, there's an opening for director of AI, and you are one of the people I'm considering. Tina says, I have no qualifications for that job. The boss says, that's okay. The AI will tell you what to do. Tina says, are you only offering me the job to meet your ESG and DEI goals? And the boss says, I'm not allowed to say. Yes. No, you're totally right. That's what ESG does. ESG's not a mandate, Scott. It's not something anyway. And the last one I'm going to read out is this one from October 15th. Dilbert says, I calculated the impact of meeting all of our company ESG goals for the environment. The ripple effect from our actions will doom the entire country of Elbonia to an icy death. Can we blame climate change? To which the boss says, I was thinking either vaccinations or long COVID. I don't even get it. We're just throwing around words now. Words are fun, though, aren't they? Speaking of words, let's move on to some news in woke washing. Here's some headlines. Green hushing on the rise as companies keep climate plans from scrutiny. Yes, to avoid scrutiny from woke regulators and investors, companies are now avoiding releasing data so they can't be sued if they're wrong. Now, do you understand? ESG is a game of transparency. The reason why we ask for all that data is so we can sue you when you do something wrong. So green hushing is a wonderful reprise of like 1987. It's great to go back though. It was a good year. I had a Walkman. We were rollerblading places. I mean, does anybody do that anymore? Well, what happened to the rollerblades? Here's another headline. HSBC ads banned from misleading consumers about green credentials. It turns out, I don't want to say this too loudly, if you say you're woke and you're not, someone can sue you or ban you. Kind of related to the first one. Maybe HSBC should have green hushed its own advertising. Finally, in woke washing news, there's this headline: synthetic ESG funds found to hold polluting collateral. Did you hear? ESG isn't one thing to all people. They think about it different ways. The news is out. I hate these headlines because it assumes that if you do the ESG, there's one way to do it. There's the right way to do it. That right way is you don't invest in this, you don't invest in that. There was a headline on Bloomberg this week talking about how Abbott Labs. Yes, Abbott Labs somehow got upgraded by MSCI to like the middle of the pack. And that was news. It was news because they're recalling baby formula. And baby formula recalls should trump every other factor in an ESG rating. That's what the headline implied. This headline implies that if you're an ESG fund and you hold something that smells funny or does bad things to the environment, you can't be an ESG fund. You can be anything. Stop saying ESG fund. It's just a fund and they use ESG data. That's what it is. Finally, in what is the greatest woke headline of 2022, and I'm dead serious about this. I'm going to make up nothing in this. I'm going to quote it directly, no commentary, because this is my favorite thing, maybe ever. Here is the headline: World's fattest parrot banned from Woke Bird of the Year contest. That's right. There's a Bird of the Year contest competition in New Zealand, and it banned the twice-winning kakapo bird to give other birds a shot at winning what is, effectively, a competition whose only goal is to raise awareness for endangered bird species. When asked about the kakapo ban, local Martin Bradbury said, quote, "Bird of the Year is so woke, suggesting the kakapo had been, quote, canceled, and the contest had become, quote, a participation award for ugly birds." Fuck the skinny endangered birds of New Zealand, am I right? That is my favorite headline ever. Finally, let's wrap up with some anti-woke washing heroes. Some anti-woke washing. We're getting deep in anti-woke washing now. You thought greenwashing was a thing. Now it's anti-woke washing. Here's the headline: Jamie Dimon says some investors don't give a shit about woke ESG investing. Jamie Dimon told clients this week that some investors don't give a shit about ESG. He also blasted companies for, quote, ceding governance to do-gooder kids on a committee whose members are selected for their bona fides in so-called ESG, or environmental, social, and governance. Here's a list, just for reference, just put this in the back of your mind, of committees that old grumpy banker Jamie Dimon currently sits on. Chair of the JP Morgan Board, Executive Committee of the Business Council, Partnership for New York City, Financial Services Forum, Council of Foreign Relations. He's the former head of the Business Roundtable, and once upon a time, he was invited to Donald Trump's business forum. But fuck those do-gooders. There's not enough room on my lawn for them to get a committee. Am I right? No committees. It's the committees, the do-gooder committees. And other news, here's a headline: Netflix rejects woke, stages stunning comeback. That's right. What's happening now is because Netflix stock is up, they're writing articles about how they're up because they are anti-woke. Despite releasing a 42-page ESG report this year, working towards net zero, detailing their drive towards, quote, media pluralism, which is hiring diverse candidates, and generally being a woke disclosure extraordinaire, they are an anti-woke folk hero because they didn't fire Dave Chappelle, and that has resulted in their stock going up. That's all it took. That's all it took. We are in desperate need of anti-woke heroes, especially since the CEO of Glorify, that anti-woke bank, just was forced to resign because it turns out having a drinking problem is not great for investors or investees. Finally, as evidence that gravity is no longer real, here's your headline. State Treasurer Boozer, Retirement Systems of Alabama, deny using ESG criteria for investments. This was an entire article from a conservative Alabama content generator focused on the fact that the state treasurer should and had to deny ever using ESG. I imagine it unfolded something like this. Sir, can you confirm that Alabama doesn't and has never used ESG criteria in their retirement funds? Yes, I'd love to answer that question. Proudly, we in Alabama prefer not to ask any companies we invest in whether they have employees that get paid a living wage, whether they will follow applicable laws, whether there are ongoing concerns, or even whether they're real. We just invested in my son Dale's lawn mowing service to the tune of $16 million with no stipulation, and he's 12. That's just how we do business here, with no information and no follow-up questions. Next question. The witch hunt is on, everyone. Aren't you excited? The witch hunt is on. This should be like really exciting news. I feel like it is exciting. Maybe it's only exciting to me. Is it true? It's only exciting to me? That's all I got today for Anti-Woke Wednesday. This has been Business Pants, a lonely Business Pants. Come back tomorrow. Damien might be back. He might actually be dying of agoraphobia. It's unclear. I haven't heard from him for like most of the day, and that's not a good sign. Maybe I'll make Ari join me if Damien's dead. Otherwise, come back tomorrow. Listen to the podcast. Subscribe. Rate us. You know what? No one does that. Why don't you do that? Just click the little rate button, and we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.